you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the council meetings or committee meetings today. Start off with the Strategy and Communication Services Committee agenda. And we have myself, Chris Thiessen, Wendy Bosch, and Mayor Clayton. Before we get going, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island, and acknowledge these lands have been home to the diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. We have the agenda, and I'm looking for someone to adopt that. Go ahead, Ms. Bosch.
So moved.
Thank you. And we'll call for the vote. And
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor O'Toole in favor. And that carries. We'll start off with the reports. We have the service area update, item 5.1, and Ms. Chief McCracken, can you lead us through that?
Thank you, Chair O'Toole. For the service area update, I'll start with City Clerk's office today. As you're aware, we have recently conducted our municipal census. Although we are no longer knocking on doors, if anyone is still interested in completing the census, they can call into 311 and complete it. We are now moving into our verification of data phase and into the analysis. So that part is undergoing right now. City Clerk's office is also assisting departments with bylaw and policy development, as well as planning for a restart to overall policy and bylaw reviews, as is required on an annual basis. The annual records management destruction period is also being planned, and departments in the organization have been contacted to assist with that. Under corporate communications, various announcements have been issued in the last 2 weeks, including upgrades planned for 2 local playgrounds, fire ban now in place due to extreme fire hazard, additional updates concerning 132nd Ave, and updates concerning amenity access at Eastlink. A public information campaign is now underway for extended producer responsibility, EPR. And we also completed community engagement open house events were hosted for the intermunicipal development plan on July 18th and 19th. In human resources, under recruitment, for Q2 in 2024, the city received over 4,000 applications for open positions. That means that we're averaging about 50 applicants per posting. It's a very consistent trend for the city, and it is evidence that we continue to attract talented individuals for our organization. On corporate marketing, under Canada Day statistics, Canada Day promotions garnered 23,846 website visits, with digital advertising reaching over 93,000 people. Day of coverage included Facebook and Instagram stories highlighting event features through video, reaching almost 10,000 additional viewers. Marketing is launching promotions for Experience Grande Prairie, started yesterday, July 22nd, with entertainment announcement live on the event's media sponsor station, 97.7 Rock. The city of Grande Prairie is proud to welcome a Canadian rock icon at this year's headliner for the all-ages event downtown in Grande Prairie City Centre on August 30th. And for those that don't know, the entertainer is Kim Mitchell. And then more entertainment announcements will be posted on the City of Grande Prairie's Facebook page in the upcoming weeks. Additional active campaigns include Sundays in the Park, afternoon tea at Forbes Homestead, GP Grows, the Aquaterra Outdoor Pool Theme Nights and sponsor free swims, and Heritage Days. For more details on the city's summer events and programs, people can visit cityofgp.com/events. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions? I see none. Thank you so much. But you're not off the hook yet. I got item 5.2, the resident satisfaction report. Can you lead us through that?
So with this, I'm going to introduce Philip Cooper. I'll ask Philip and Corbin Bowman, our communication strategist, to come up to the table. And they are going to introduce our delegates from Forum, who are here, Forum Research, who are here to talk about our recent resident satisfaction survey that we conducted. We do this on a biennial basis. And with that, I will hand this over to Director Cooper.
Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you, Council, for having us. So, as just noted, today Corbin and I will be presenting the results of the biannual resident satisfaction survey. As a recap of what took place in May, the City of Grande Prairie conducted its biannual resident satisfaction survey, partnering with Forum Research. An in-depth questionnaire was created to objectively measure the city's performance and develop an understanding of residents' expectations, views, satisfaction level with city services, programs, and value for their tax dollar. So to help get that information across and summarize what we heard, we have three representatives of Forum Research with us today. Jessica Simpson, Research Analysis, Wynn Steck, Senior Research Director, and Lauren Bozanoff, President and CEO of Forum Research. So they will now be joined via Zoom.
I see them on my screen.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
we can see you.
Give me 1 second.
There we go.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today. We're excited to provide you with a high-level summary of your 2024 resident satisfaction survey results today, but please note the full comprehensive report is appended to the agenda to review at your leisure. Comparison information for similar municipalities is available in the report, and we can speak to any relevant comparisons during the Q&A session. Okay, let's go over who we actually talked to. We fielded a random digit dial telephone survey targeting both landlines and cell phones from mid to late May to gather 402 completed surveys. This gives us a margin of error of just under 5%, which essentially means that any changes year over year, plus or minus 5%, are pretty comparable, whereas anything greater than that range would be a true difference in resident sentiment between years. The average survey length was 17 minutes to complete, and our target audience was Grande Prairie residents who were 18 years of age or older. The telephone results throughout have been statistically weighted by age and gender to ensure that our sample of 402 residents reflected your population according to 2021 census data. We also fielded an online survey through an open link hosted on the city's website around the same time frame to ensure every resident who wanted their voice heard could do so. However, given the nature of the self-selected data collection method, these results aren't typically reflective of your population, and we won't be focusing on them today. So let's get into the findings. We asked residents to identify the issues they feel should receive the greatest attention from City Council. 23% of residents mentioned homelessness, while 12% mentioned property taxes being too high, and 12% mentioned lowering the city's crime rate. In terms of quality of life, when asked to rate their quality of life from very poor to very good, 91% rate their overall quality of life in Grande Prairie as good or very good, and when asked about the change in their quality of life over the past 3 years, 62% of residents said their quality of life stayed the same or improved. For residents that feel their quality of life improved, the top 3 most commonly identified reasons are the building and maintenance of infrastructure and roads, a well-run city, and the availability of good amenities. When asked about the reasoning behind their worsening quality of life, the top 3 most commonly identified reasons are the economy, including inflation and cost of living, increase in crime, and homelessness. On to the Net Promoter Analysis. The Net Promoter Score, or NPS, assesses the willingness of residents to promote the city of Grande Prairie based on their likelihood of recommending the city as a place to live using a scale of 1 to 10. Based on the score provided, residents were classified as detractors, passives, or promoters. The Net Promoter Score is calculated by subtracting the detractors from the promoters, which resulted in a score of negative 27, suggesting that residents are more likely not to recommend the city than to recommend it. Again, we're aware of residents' top-of-mind issues, so finding ways to address these issues, as well as additional items that we'll get into, could help improve this Net Promoter Score. Moving on to resident perceptions, residents were asked to rate their level of agreement with a variety of statements. Close to 9 in 10 residents agree that the city has a bright future, a vibrant and healthy local economy, is a great community to raise a family in, and they're proud to live here. While safety and security was the statement with the least agreement overall, the majority of residents do feel that the city is safe and secure. Services in the city are seen as well-run and receive generally positive reviews from residents, with 78% saying they're satisfied overall. When looking at the satisfaction with each individual city service, some services to highlight include essential services like the fire department, which receives almost universally positive reviews. The fire department is followed by parks, playgrounds and trails, arts, cultural facilities and programs, and city-operated recreational facilities. The lowest scoring service area is housing and rent support, with a top 2 score of 50%, meaning about half of residents are satisfied with this service. We then conducted a gap analysis based on telephone survey results to assess the difference between how satisfied residents are with each city service we just saw and the impact of each service on residents' overall service satisfaction. As a result of the analysis, city services have been distributed among 4 areas: primary areas for improvement, secondary areas for improvement, primary areas for maintenance, and secondary areas for maintenance. We know that the city has to prioritize where to focus its efforts, so what we really want to focus on here is the primary areas for improvement section, more specifically city-operated roads and infrastructure. This is the service that has the highest impact on overall satisfaction, but a lower individual satisfaction score. If the city can increase the satisfaction score in this area, this will have the largest impact on overall satisfaction with city services. The analysis also determined that residents are satisfied with the city's public transit services compared to its impact on overall satisfaction and is a primary area to maintain. When asked about their most recent contact with the city, 27% of residents say they contacted the city or its employees in the past 12 months, and of those that contacted the city, the most common method of contact was telephone. Still thinking about residents who contacted the city in the past year, 62% are satisfied overall with their most recent contact experience. Residents most often agree that city staff are courteous, helpful, and knowledgeable, and least often agree that the city responds quickly to requests and concerns. Again, while the statement is the lowest overall agreement, 61% nevertheless agree. Thinking about the ways residents prefer to receive information from the city, email/e-newsletter is the most commonly preferred way to receive information, followed by Facebook, with news outlets, radio, and newspaper, etc., rounding out the top 3. Moving on to resident input on decision-making surrounding projects and services, 72% of residents would like to provide their input, while just over half of residents feel that the city uses and provides enough opportunity for resident input. Looking at city-hosted events, 92% of residents think that city-hosted events are an important part of the local sense of community, and 78% are interested in attending more city-hosted events in the next 12 months. New in 2024, residents were then asked to name the city-hosted events that they had attended within the past 12 months. Residents mentioned a wide variety of events, both city-hosted and non-city-hosted. This visual shows city-hosted events like the Canada Day celebration in green, and other events like concerts in blue. Looking at residents that attended a city-hosted event, the Canada Day celebration was most popular, followed by other holiday events like the Easter extravaganza and the New Year's Eve celebration. Moving on to taxes, residents were asked to consider the services provided by the city and rate the value they receive for their municipal property tax dollars on a scale from 1 to 10. 32% of residents feel they receive good value for their tax dollars, while an almost equal number of residents feel they receive a poor value. We then wanted to better understand residents' thoughts on the rising cost of providing programs and services. When asked about their path forward, about half of residents said that the city should not increase taxes or user fees, even if it means cuts to programs and services, while the other half would be open to an increase of taxes or user fees if it meant the city could maintain or add new programs and services. 32% support the maintenance of existing programs and services, even if it results in increased taxes or user fees, while 11% support the addition of new programs and services, even if it results in increased taxes or user fees. Of the residents who said the city should maintain existing or add new programs and services, 80% want the increased costs covered through increases to user fees, 17% support an increase to property taxes, and only 3% support an increase to both property taxes and user fees. Looking at residents' thoughts about economic strength, 86% say the city's economy is good or very good, with 80% saying the same about Alberta's economy. And looking to the future, 88% of residents feel that the city's economy will stay the same or improve over the next 12 months. In summary, the city has a good quality of life, with residents feeling positively about many areas of the city's operations and services, including the city's economic strength. Residents are proud to live in the city of Grande Prairie. They think it's a great community to raise a family in, and that the city has a bright future ahead. We'll now open the floor to any questions.
All right, thank you very much for that report. I just got one question to get things started. Was there any questions regarding how long the residents were in the city of Grande Prairie? Or did that come up at all?
Yes, we did ask residents how long they had lived in the city of Grande Prairie. And looking at the demographics, the majority of residents had lived in the city for 21 to 30 years. And the smallest number of respondents had lived in the city for 50 or more years.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of people in the queue here. We'll start off with Councillor Bosch. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair O'Toole. I have two questions. One is the 400 survey participants in ratio to the approximate 70,000 people that live here. Do you feel that's a good representation?
Thank you for your question. I'm going to pass this one off to Wynne or Lauren.
Sure, I can take that. Thank you for the question, Councillor Bosch. It is a representative sample, so because of the nature of random digit dial, everyone in the population, we target both cell phones and landlines to make sure that we can reach cell phone-only households. So for a sample size of 400, Jessica mentioned earlier, it gives us a margin of error of just under 5%. So if we were to do the survey again around the same parameters, you would see the exact same results within plus or minus 5%. So let's say a top two score of 80% satisfaction. If we were to do this again, we would see either a range between 75 and 85. So it's a really good obviously the more sample size you have, the smaller your margin of error will be. But when you're kind of weighing costs and balances, it's a very affordable sample size to still get you a good margin of error.
Okay, that basically
Laura, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, that was basically my question, is if this is a good number that you would use or move forward with the 400, if that was a good sample size, or if we need to get more in the future. The second question... go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, for example, if you were to increase your sample size to 500, that would give you a margin of error of 4.4. So by adding another about 100 completes, you get about a half percentage point decrease in margin of error. But the more you add it gets smaller, but it doesn't. 400 is kind of like the baseline that we use.
Okay. Thank you. The second question is, you said in the last slide that the residents are proud to be part of Grande Prairie, yet earlier, the same sample size said that one of the slides said that they don't speak highly of living in Grande Prairie. So I'm curious of the difference between a high number not speaking highly of Grande Prairie and yet the majority proud to live here.
I'm just going through the slides to try to pull up those numbers. I'm proud to live in Grande Prairie, so your top two score there was quite high, 86%. And sorry, Councillor, what was the question? In the summary slide, we were saying people are proud to live there?
Right. In one of them, you said that that they wouldn't recommend living here. So yet at the end, it says proud to live here. So I'm just a little bit confused of the differentiation between the two.
I understand the question. Okay, so it is a little bit of they are asking two different, completely different questions. So we're asking them on the satisfaction scale, rate how proud you are, or how much do you agree with the statement that I'm proud to live in Grande Prairie. And most people are like somewhat or very like agreeable to that statement. But Net Promoter Score analysis, it's based on a 10-point scale. So if they were to offer a number of 6, let's say, they're technically classified as a detractor to your city. And basically because you might think 6 is on more of the positive end of a 10-point scale, but when people give ratings such as 6, they're maybe more likely to provide some things that they would like to see changed or improved versus we're subtracting detractor scores of 1 to 6 from promoters, which are scores of 9 or 10. So these are your super, gung-ho Grande Prairie residents that would, time and time again recommend you. So it's just the nature of the analysis that makes it seem quite negative. But we do have benchmarking comparisons, and I think of the comparable municipalities we had data for, the average Net Promoter Score was -8. So you're still lower than that, but it's not all honky-dory in some other comparable cities. Net Promoter Score is just very difficult to have a positive rating. But Lauren, did you have anything to add to that?
Sure. So the Net Promoter Score was developed by a professor at Harvard Business School. It's more geared to private industry where you're trying to maximize the satisfaction of your customers. It's not about really providing the service the way the municipality does to everyone in the community. It's just really targeted to people who buy that particular product. So it's a really high bar for the reasons that Wynn just went through. The people in the middle, which when they say they're somewhat satisfied, we count them in the top 2 boxes on those statements, but they don't count in that measure. They're taken out. So that really the Net Promoter really looks at 2 extreme groups: the people who are super thrilled with the organization or community, and the people who are not very negatively feel about the community. And the silent majority is taken out of the analysis. So the bottom line, though, is in this community, the vast majority are very or somewhat satisfied. We saw that in those statements. Are they going to go out and go to a cocktail party and tell everyone how great the city is? A lot of them are. And that's the group that gets you the high score. So it's a tough measure to do well on, especially in a municipality where you are providing services to every single person in the community, not just, a set of customers that and so forth. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those responses. I've got Councillor Thiessen next.
Thank you very much, Chair O'Toole. Thanks for the report. I found some very valuable insights in there. One of the ones that I thought was really interesting was the portion where it said ad programs and services, increase tax user fees. It was 80% of our public that said we should just increase the taxes and improve the services if we can. That sort of tracks for me back to 2018 when we reduced the taxes by over 4%. And I received more phone calls that year about the potential reduction in services with the tax cuts. So that sort of tracks. It also tracks with the 12% that said taxes are one of the top issues in our community. I guess my question is going back to the Net Promoter. Do we have any historical scores of our Net Promoter, or is this first time that we've incorporated this? I know it's not the first time I've seen this, but do we have any previous scores on the Net Promoter?
I can take that question. So I believe in 2020, your Net Promoter Score was minus 22. So it's gone down a little bit more since then, but it's still a comparable score, still in the 20s.
Okay, yeah, no, I thought that we did it in 2022. We haven't done it before that. That's the only other historical statistic that we have with the Net Promoter?
I believe so, yes.
Awesome. So I guess my secondary question to the Net Promoter, through this process, did you or our staff come up with any insights on how we could improve our promoter score so that we have more people singing the praises of Grande Prairie versus more people saying, don't come here? Any insights?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, so the nature of the telephone survey, which is also why it's a lot better than online, a lot of the way our questions were framed were open-ended or free recall. So when we asked them, in your view as a resident, what is the most important issue facing your community? That's a free recall type question. We don't bias them with any pre-populated answers as with the online survey. So the top issues that came about were homelessness, providing programs for homeless people, the property taxes. You can't always do much with that, but property taxes are just being too high, cost too much, and the crime rate has been increasing, so they want to lower that. So those are the top of mind issues. And then also when we asked them about reasons for change in quality of life, of the people who said that quality of life worsened, it echoed those top of mind issues. So they were saying, the cost of living and inflation, like that's why my quality of life has worsened. Crime increasing and theft, the homelessness is increasing. So these are being mirrored again and again when we ask them these free recall type of questions. And then also that the gap analysis that Jessica showed earlier, when we ran the analysis of we did what's called a regression analysis, and it identifies of the services that we asked them to rate, how does it impact their overall satisfaction? And there was one service that stood out. It's city-operated roads and infrastructure. So obviously that costs taxpayer dollars, but to just continue to maintain your roads and infrastructure, that's something that would help improve their overall satisfaction. And these are all kind of metrics that are closely tied to your Net Promoter Score. So there are some things for you to consider.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, if I may, I did have one more question. It was in regards to roads and infrastructure.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. No, I appreciate all those answers. Just a question in your survey of our citizens. Was construction put out as an issue? I know that we've put in tremendous resources over the last 3-4 years into maintaining, improving, and maximizing our road infrastructure system. Did any of our respondents to the survey comment that construction was one of their biggest frustrations with road and infrastructure?
It's possible, and I can look into that and get you some follow-up information, because when they just provide the verbatims, our interviewers write it down, and then we have a team that codes the responses. So, for example, like good infrastructure, roads being built, well-maintained, they could have perhaps said the word construction within there, whether it's positive or negative. So we can just have a look at that and see the frequency of how often construction itself is being mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
I've got Councillor Bosch. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is just a clarification question in regards to Councillor Thiessen's comments. I read it differently from balancing taxes to services, so maybe you can clarify between us. I read that the increase to services, people would like to see an increase to user fees, not taxes. Is that correct? Looking on this sheet?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So of the people who were open to increasing taxes or user fees to maintain or to add new programs, 80% prefer to put the onus on the people who use these programs and services to pay for it, whereas only 17% said increases to property taxes and 3% said let's do a mix of increase to both.
Okay.
So
Thank you for the clarification.
And now I've got Mayor Clayton. Go ahead, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. I found it interesting that you mentioned a significant portion of the respondents lived in the community 20 plus year, and then the next group was even longer. I'm curious on your interpretation of that. We know that people move to our community on a regular basis, and people that have lived here 20 plus years may not have a most recent comparable to another municipality. And so that sample group is really honed in on people that, based on the representation of our community, that have lived here a long time. And I don't know if that's representative of a broad mix. And so I'm curious of your comments on that.
So I think we were very limited and selective with the demographics, like questions that we did ask. So we only asked for age, gender, and years living in Grande Prairie. But when I'm looking at the distribution here, so about 10% of your population has lived there, that we surveyed, has lived there for fewer than 5. 17% was between 5 and 10. 12%, 11 to 15 years. 17%, 16 to 20. 21 to 30 years is 22%. 31 to 49, 16%. And 7% are 50 years or more. So there's still a good distribution, but you do kind of see the bars on the chart get a little bit bigger as age, or not as age, as years lived increase. But you do have a good sample size, about, let me do some quick math here because I can't do that in my head. So about a quarter of your population has lived in Grande Prairie for less than 10 years. So we're still hearing from people that have either, just moved there or have been there all their life. Sorry, I forget what the original question was.
So no, basically based on those numbers, 75% of the people you surveyed have lived in Grande Prairie more than 10 years.
Yes.
Or greater than 10 years or greater.
Yes.
And so your interpretation of that, when somebody's lived somewhere for 10 years or longer, they haven't had a most recent comparison to another municipality. So I'm just curious on your thoughts in regards to, when you're facing something for the same all the time, and the 75% of the respondents have lived here more than 10 years, there may not be something fresh in their mind of what it's like when they live somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And I think because that is the case, the best thing you can do is what you're doing by doing this biannual survey of continuously surveying your same residents, your long-term residents, every couple of years, just to see how things have changed in their perceptions, if at all. Lauren, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So we really, as we compare from year to year, so the previous survey to this year to see if the mix of responses has changed. People do hear about other communities. They visit other communities. They have friends and relatives in other communities. So, and they see in the media portrayals of other communities. So they do have some idea what other communities are like without having to live there. And I think they use that partly then as their judgments.
Okay. I've got one question that I have left is, you do surveys for all communities in Alberta and I imagine Western Canada. How do we fit in? Is our results very similar, or are we above the grade, or are we a little bit lower than grade?
Sure, I can answer that question. So for the communities we did compare you against, there were 4 main questions that are typically standard between all municipalities. That's the quality of life score, net promoter score, overall satisfaction with city services, and value for tax dollars. So generally, you scored at maybe above or maybe below the mean. So, for example, quality of life, you had a top 2 score of 91%. The mean was 89. So that's a pretty comparable metric. I mentioned Net Promoter Score earlier. It was -8. That was our average score, whereas yours was -27. In terms of city services, you were a bit below the mean, so satisfaction with services overall, you had 78%, and the mean was 85. And then value for tax dollars, we used the top 5 score instead of the top 4 score that we reported on, just because that's how other municipalities like to do it sometimes. So your value for tax dollar, 48%, if we're doing top 5, said that they receive a good value for tax dollars. And other municipalities, the top 5 score was 67%. So you're a bit lower there.
All right. I thank you very much for your... Oh, I got one more question here. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Chair O'Toole. My last question is in regards to the quality of life slides. Sorry, I don't have the page number here, but it's the bubbles where you have all the words that are contextualized inside of the bubble for reasons why quality of life has improved and reasons why quality of life has worsened. Now, in the past, when we did our citizen satisfaction survey, we used to get comments, maybe lists, sometimes it was pages. I always found it interesting to go through to see what our residents were saying. This gives me a kind of an overview of it, but would those be available, those comments of the citizen satisfaction survey? Were they captured more than just in this bubble, and are they available to share with council?
Yep, I believe that all the verbatims are provided within the raw data file that we did send over. So Corbin or Philip would have access to that and can share with council. And then you can see also how we coded it, like what is the overarching theme, and then there will be a separate column of data to show the actual verbatim that went into coding that theme.
Well, I would find that very interesting. I see Philip nodding happily at the table, so I'm sure council will get that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. I don't see any other questions from council members, so thank you very much for attending, and appreciate all your responses. And with that, we got business. You want to look after that?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I move that committee receive this report for information. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call for the vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the outstanding items list. Are there any changes?
You want to do it?
Thank you, Chair. It will remain as nothing on the outstanding items list.
Okay. Would you like to
I would love to, actually.
accept that item?
I would like to receive the outstanding items list at 0 as presented. Yes.
And that is voted on, and it is carried. And with that, this meeting is now adjourned.